Hey, this is Perch. One of the things that I think is more harmful than helpful to the comic industry, and I see this stuff go on a regular basis, is there's this veneer of we all support each other and we're going to compliment each other's work and we're going to put a lot of positivity out there. There's always like it feels like every week there's a comic book positivity thread. Say something nice about a fellow creator. Yeah, by the way, as an aside, it'd be a cool thing that somebody could do is it's Comic Customer Positivity Day. Say something nice about a customer, somebody who's paying for the work. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying like that might be kind of a cool thing. Or hey, how about shout out to some retail shops day where we talk about some places that sell these comic books. Anyway, I'm getting off track. The point is, the comic industry is filled with lots of statements about positivity, about supporting each other, and I think that's great. It's nice to have this tight knit community that supports each other, that looks out for each other, that helps people get work. That when somebody falls on hard times, they kind of rally to do that. The challenge is that by and large, that's not actually the industry we have. The industry we have is a lot more thin skinned and petty than that. And I'm speaking broadly. There's some wonderful people out there, 100% wonderful people out there who work very hard behind the scenes or even on the scenes to try and help people out, to give people opportunities, to get people connected with jobs, to help with health insurance, all the rest. And they don't let the little things bother them. And one of the things I've heard consistently at Comic Cons, it's even been said just outright in panels, you see it every now and then in statements, is this is an industry that's very thin skinned. And almost immediately after that is but of course it's that way because creative people, they are sometimes a little bit more fragile. So you gotta respect and acknowledge that. And I've always taken offense to those statements. I'm not obviously in the comic industry. I mean, I sell comics. I guess I am in the comic industry. Who knows what I am anymore? But to me personally, it would not be a compliment if somebody told me, "Hey, I know you're a creative type and therefore very fragile, so I'll make sure I don't ever say anything that offends your sensibilities." To me, that would be an insult. I would feel insulted if somebody told me that. But in comics, it feels like not only is that not an insult, that's somewhat the expectation. And the industry kind of pushes itself from time to time, like, don't say anything negative. But the comedy of that is that there are so many, like, secret groups and missions. I mean, that whole Whisper Network story that kind of rolled through comics a little bit, the problem with that story is that the story kind of portrayed that as there's one group, and the reality is there are dozens of groups, and there are people who are multiple groups, and sometimes they pit the groups against each other, and it's there's an extreme undercurrent of sometimes backstabbing and fighting within comics, and I do appreciate, and I mean this sincerely, I do appreciate kind of the attempts at people within comics to hide that from the customers. That is the right thing to do, to make at least some efforts to hide the pettiness and the silliness from the people who are going to purchase and consume your books. But at this point, the cat is somewhat out of the bag. I mean, everybody kind of knows it. But I feel like the whole let's try and not hurt anyone's feelings, let's try and be overly gentle is more negative than positive. I feel like it's setting a very bad standard in place that is not helpful to anyone. I feel like it's actually, if anything, causing more problems than it's worth because it's teaching people kind of multiple stories. First off, it's teaching them how not to handle criticism. And second, it's teaching them that if they do have criticism, and everybody does, especially people who are more independent contractors working from home, working on their own, don't have to go to an office, it teaches them that in order to complain, in order to vent, you need to do that secretly in private with little groups. It encourages kind of some of this backstabbing bad behavior that causes a lot of problems. So I think we'd have a much healthier industry if, one, criticism was not looked upon so delicately, And two, if people could say, hey, I don't like that, I do like that, etc. I mean, right now, if you're in comics, as some people have just recently learned, you cannot insult Donny Cates about anything. And when I say insult, I'm talking even things like, I didn't really like that story. I have watched people say, yeah, I couldn't really get into Thor. Quote, I couldn't really get into Thor. And people just crap all over this person. I mean, people who are in comics, like assistant editors and others, will just go at that for like, keep that stuff to yourself. That's not what you should be saying in public. Keep that stuff to you. Like, Jesus. I mean, that it's not like, I mean, definitely. And without a shadow of a doubt, if you go on Twitter, you will see people say offensive, terrible, awful, nasty things. That is not criticism, but it's just being cruel, petty, and shitty. Absolutely. There's plenty of it. And sometimes people do it by accident. I'll give you an example of myself. Okay. When I did my Wonder Woman review, I basically said that if you find yourself crying multiple times in this movie, you should seek help. Now, that was too flippant of a comment. I think that was not appropriate for me to say. I admit it. I'm not being forced. Nobody's got a gun to my head. The reason I said that is because I just, in prepping for the show, I read this interview where Patty Jenkins was saying, every time I watch this film, I find something new to cry about. And I thought, God, you made the film. That sounds really absurd to me. I mean, it felt like very weird hype, and I reacted to it. But the reality is, people have emotions for all kinds of different things, and who knows what will make you cry, and that's your business. And no, you don't need to seek mental help if you cry in a movie. Of course not. So that was me saying something dumb by accident, but still dumb. That's like the haiku. Dumb, accident, still dumb. Still dumb. I will admit it. Should try not to do that in the future. All the same, much of the quote unquote criticism and negativity that goes out is so tame. Like, you see this stuff, and you would, if this is bothering people, they would not survive like 10 minutes in any kind of corporate setting. And by the way, I've said exactly that to some people that I've met up here at the Emerald City Comic Con here in Seattle. And I've gotten back well, that's why we don't do corporate jobs. That's why we pick comics, so we don't have to deal with that kind of crap. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. All the same, it's not healthy to be, basically, only bad things come from shutting yourself off from any criticism whatsoever. First of all, you start to lose sight of what is cruelty and what is constructive. And that's one of the biggest problems in comics right now. I have, as you've heard me do on this channel, complained about solicitations being crappy. The reasoning? Because they're crappy. Because I can't tell what the F the book is, and you're asking me to order for the shop and put out money down and purchase so I can then resell it to customers. I can't tell what is going on with this comic. I don't think you're a terrible person. I don't think you're awful, but your solicitation, what you wrote in the solicitation, blows. It's not helpful. It's not doing the job. I have had a writer and an editor both. I mean, for whatever reason, that is the critique for me that has just flipped people out. I've had just the nastiest kind of comments being made back and forth. But look at some of the other things. I mean, I can go through a number of examples, a number of recent examples where I've said something on a show and like people have just gotten unreasonably angry over it. And it's not even criticism. If you fail to understand the difference between constructive criticism and somebody being cruel, if you lose insight of that, you're in for a zoo of a life. Not only are you going to be miserable, but your work is going to suffer. Because at that point, the only people pushing you to do better or to improve your craft or to, whatever it happens to be, the only people are your own friends, are your own tiny bubble of your circle. And those people are not going to tell you the truth, especially if you've trained them that you cannot handle any kind of criticism or any kind of critique that might in any tiny way bother them. If you train people to treat you that way, then they will never be honest with you. They're only going to tell you what they want to hear. And then you're screwed. You're only as good as the people are. You're basically, and this is the challenge, as long as other people perceive you have value to them, meaning maybe people perceive that if Donnie Cates gives them enough likes on Twitter, they will be somehow elevated to some new state. But there will be another hot writer after Donnie Cates. Donnie Cates is not the last writer ever to grace comics. There will be a new one. And then people are going to chase that. It wasn't long ago, meaning it was just a couple months ago, that Jonathan Hickman was like, you had to get his attention. You had to get stuff off from him. And now I think he's left Twitter. And so it's like, okay, so now it's Donnie. And by the way, I say this as somebody who has received multiple likes with both my store account and my Perch account from Donnie Cates. I am on my way. My next step, I just got to work out those pitches with Joe, and I will be writing comics, and it's awesome. I'm set. I got the coveted Donnie Cates like, and now I'm set. By the way, none of this is insulting Donnie Cates. He's fine. Besides, I need that job, Donnie Cates. So please, no shade. No, my point is it doesn't help anyone to be completely allergic to critique. Yes, if somebody is like if some YouTuber, and no, this isn't a shot. By the way, this goes for some fans as well. I will say things like there's been many a show where I've been irritated about something that the Comic Explained guy is doing. And I'll see somebody show up in the comments like, there you go again, attacking Zach. And I'm like, what? I literally do not know what you're talking about. Sorry. And it's just, people need to chill and just relax a little bit and consider that don't be so ready to fight all the freaking time. It's not healthy. It's not making anything better. And frankly, most of the time, people are not trying to fight in the first place. Myself in particular, I mean, if you think I'm the guy who's out there brawling with you, you have picked a terrible, terrible foil. I'm a terrible villain because I'm largely lazy. I don't really have any ambitions to go dominate the comic industry. I'm not trying to dominate YouTube either. I don't care. You're picking somebody who does not care. So that may be a good, safe villain for you, but it's not going to be very fulfilling over time, and it's you're not going to get much out of that feud. So I encourage you to go, to get somebody who will really kind of dig in. I'm a crappy one. You could do videos and live streams on me, but I mean, I'm like, I mean, it's just what you really need is somebody who's going to fight back. Because if you get somebody who's going to fight back, then you get the traffic both ways, and it really works. But I'm like a lump of clay when you're fighting. It's not a great fight. Just saying. Well, you can do what you want, but anyway, comics. My conclusion here, if it's not already clear, criticism is okay. It's healthy. It has to be balanced. Yes, I think if there's somebody who is out on YouTube taking your comic and dousing it in gasoline and burning it and then saying that they wish you'd never been born because you're a disgrace to all humanity, that's not criticism. That's somebody being a dick and probably a little crazy and in danger of burning down their house. That's one thing, okay? But most criticism is not that. Most criticism is extremely timid. It's I didn't like this comic book. I don't like people talking on 4 pages in a row. That shouldn't trigger you. Again, you can be triggered by whatever you like. I'm not telling you what you can and cannot be triggered by, but that's not a. There's worse things, and I think maybe one of the symptoms here is it's helpful, I think, in life to get a job outside of comics, get a job outside the weird bubble that is comics. Whether it's work that Burger King or a jeans store or a God help you a tech startup company or whatever it happens to be. Work some job where a couple things. One, nobody's going to protect your ego. You're going to have to learn how to protect it yourself. Number two, you are going to need to you're going to need to get along with people you like and don't like. You ever heard this expression? If you've ever worked for a job, you may have heard the message, you don't have to like each other, but you do have to get along. Have you ever heard that? This is usually a manager go-to when two people are fighting and the manager doesn't really want to deal with it and they're just kind of annoyed by the whole thing. The manager will say something along the lines of, you don't need to get, you don't need to like each other, but you do need to work together, or you need to be able to get along, or you need to be able to get along enough to work together. Some combo of those. It's a very basic statement. What the manager is basically telling you is, I don't give a shit about your whatever petty feud you've got going on here with this person, but it's not going to jeopardize my business. So you need to figure out a way to work productively for the betterment of the company. And if you are unable to do that, I'm going to fire you. And I don't care whether that person, I don't care whether he's right, she's right. I don't care who's right in this situation. But if you're unable to, productively get stuff done, then I will get rid of one or both of you. And I'm not going to bother to see who's right and who's wrong. I'm just going to stop the problem. I'm just going to stop the noise. And in comics, that attitude, that message doesn't seem to be delivered. Instead, there's a lot of the, hey, people are arguing. Let's everybody just kind of suppress those feelings. Let's take those feelings and bundle them up in a little ball and shove that way down inside. That's the healthy. That's always the healthy thing to do with problems. You bury it deep in your stomach. It's a good idea. Or it's just let's just bitch about each other behind the scenes, and I'm sure everything will work out great. Both bad options. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, to me, that's something that I think would be very healthy if the comic industry could get around. Handle criticism. Stop fearing it. Stop reacting like any negative word, and let's break down that shield, that frankly phony shield of hey, creative people creative people can't handle criticism. They're too gentle people. They're gentle souls. They can't handle any critique. We need to make sure to protect them from this. We need to, if they learn that we criticize them, they may fall apart in shambles and never be able to produce, another story again. Like that, people are stronger than that. They can take it. They can be okay, and it will help. It will help everybody learn the difference between criticism and cruelty, which are two radically different things. Anyway, my opinion. What's yours? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Follow me on social media. If you want to put up with that crap, you can. Send me an email. Most importantly, and honestly, thanks for listening.